Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Salt Lake Expositor. We are maybe experiencing just a couple of little glitches in our technology. So stick with us here and we'll be rocking and rolling shortly. I just didn't want anyone to think that we weren't showing up because that's kind of what it looks like right now. Gene, are you with us?
I am with us from 3 hours north of Bangkok today.
Right. Bangkok, Thailand.
I saw people riding elephants yesterday, but I was
Super cool.
What?
either A, too chicken, or B, didn't have enough money to ride an elephant.
Well, which was it?
I got this shirt though.
Oh, cool. I like
As long
it.
as you got the shirt, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, you're set.
Yeah. And Randy switched.
I did not. I'm not switching.
You know what? I took you out and put you back in because I couldn't hear you, and now I can. So there we go.
Well, you are so intelligent. So we're all set to go.
Yeah.
So the headline says Mormon Church now observing Holy Week. And what we found out, thanks to Megan Hayes on her Mormon News Daily Show. What is it?
Generally unquotable.
Generally unquotable. She saw that there were some sort of glitches in the matrix as far as the LDS Church is concerned. On their website, it says, "We do not observe Holy Week." And then they put out a press release saying that there was, they listed for the first time I can remember, and she said the same thing, all the planned firesides and broadcasts and stuff that they're going to do digitally for the year that are sort of church-wide. And included in that is, hey, everybody, let's do some Holy Week stuff.
Yay for Holy Week.
Yeah. So what do you think about that, Randy?
Well, here's what I think. They really need to get their act together because one hand is not having any clue of what the other hand is doing. And, they want to be like real Christians, traditional Christians. There are some that are all for that, and there's some that seem to be not all for it. And I think there's two opposing sides, and I think there's no communication. I think they need to sit down and have an Easter meeting and say, what do we want to do to be more like traditional Christians? What do we want to celebrate? What do we not want to celebrate? Shall we put ashes on our forehead? Shall we not put ashes on our forehead?
That's a good
little by little
thought, Randy.
Yeah, little by little, they've added things here and there, but
so Randy, you helped open Euro Disney, right?
I did.
Did Disney spend a lot of time planning on what they're going to do? I mean, you knew the security part. How many months did you plan on the security?
Oh my gosh. Euro Disney was in the planning for 2 years. The security, we started putting our game plan together 90 days ahead of time because, that's when they selected the cruise to go over. But the actual planning starts years in advance. I opened Disney's largest resort, which is the All-Star Resort. And I was on the opening crew. I went over there and wore a hard hat and boots because ground was just starting to get broken. And that planning, we were in that particular situation for at least a year, having meetings every day, deciding exactly how the opening was going to go. And, the church could take lessons from Disney.
The thing is, I think they do a lot of planning and stuff, but I also think that they get easily swayed by the things that people say and how people react to things, because they care so much about what everybody else is saying about the Mormon church, that it's like they have a plan, and then, but they don't think about everything because they're so out of touch. I think that's what the real issue is. Like they make a plan to do something, and then they don't think of all of the stuff that they should, and they don't consult enough sources, and they start to go forward with it, and something happens that looks really bad, and they're like, oh shoot, we didn't think about that, we should do it differently.
Yeah, but do they, Megan? Do they really care about what other people are saying and thinking? Because if they did, they would be issuing a lot of apologies.
I think that they care very much about preserving the reputation of the church. And I think they care very much, they've shown by their actions that they care very much about being perceived by mainstream Christianity as a mainstream Christian church. And that's why they've started making all of these not so subtle changes. And I think this is another one of them. But the thing is that they are so stunningly tone deaf to how other Christian churches perceive Mormonism. And they don't know what they're doing wrong, because they won't ask any of the other denominations, like, what should we do to be more mainstream? They just do what they think they should do based on their limited experience. And that's what happens when you make decisions in an echo chamber.
I like that. Making decisions in an echo chamber.
So I really shouldn't share anything because my internet is slow, and maybe my computer as well. I was noticing that when I was trying to do some other things, that I was glitching, and I don't know if people can see me glitching in the matrix. But anyhow, we can come back to that if somebody wanted to get either Megan Hayes's sort of announcement on it, or B,
I'll pull that up.
Look up those things. Or we can go, Randy, to the thing that you have right now planned.
Okay,
and then we can come back to, so you can do the prelude to the next story.
Brandy Messick sent me something on Facebook today that was put out by, or that was posted by the CES director. That's his Facebook name. And it was actually created by Religious Business, which is a channel that specializes in the business that other religions are involved with. I want to play that for you now, because just to preface it, growing up, I was so naive to think that from the time I was a little kid in primary, if I got $1 by doing chores and things, I would be sure and take a dime to primary, and I would be sure and take my my pennies to primary for the children's hospital. I know that I didn't actually pay my dime to the primary leader, but they helped me pay it to the bishop. Anyway, I naively thought, and I was taught from the time I was a little pecker, that my tithing money went to help those in need. And I naively believed that right up until a few years ago. So this video, really, if any of you are curious exactly where the tithing money goes and what it is invested into, take a look at this. I think it'll probably interest you. Let's rock and roll here.
There are always winners and losers in war. But guess who wins in wartime?
It might
the LDS
be a
Church.
Good idea. Can you hear
Ensign Peak Advisors, an auxiliary of the LDS Church, is there are always
weird.
I can hear it.
I could hear it.
You can hear it? Okay. Well, so long as you can hear it, that's good, because I've heard it a few times today. Yeah, let me play it for you.
Winners and losers in war. But guess who wins in wartime? The LDS Church. Ensign Peak Advisors, an auxiliary of the LDS Church, is a for-profit investment fund registered as a church. It owns major shares in publicly traded defense companies. Here's 3 of several companies that Ensign reported holdings in the U.S. defense industry. These figures come straight from the SEC. Let's go with Boeing, $120 million. Lockheed Martin, approximately $35 million. BWX Technologies, approximately $54 million. BWX plays a significant role in the nuclear weapons space. In regards to U.S. foreign military sales, the U.S. government gives foreign aid via our tax dollars. Then that foreign aid goes to specific countries. Then those countries turn around and have to buy U.S.-made weapons from the above companies. Taxpayers have funded $8 billion in weapon sales for Israel and Ukraine this year alone, both of which are currently at war. Ensign Peak, registered as a church, does not pay taxes on these for-profit vehicles. How this works is you, as a taxpayer, fund wars across the globe while accumulating a massive deficit passed on to our children via billions of dollars annually in aid to buy these weapon systems from some of these companies the LDS Church is currently invested in. The big systems banks also make a lot of money in this dark web on multiple fronts during times of war. Let's take a look at how this feedback loop works. Number 1, Congress approves defense spending. Number 2, the Treasury then borrows. Then Fed and private banks buy that debt. Then the interest is paid by you, the taxpayer. Number 3, defense contractors deliver these weapons, then they get paid, and they reinvest or distribute the dividends. Number 4, markets rise, banks and investors profit, and then the cycle just repeats itself. A real-world example of this feedback loop is after the 9/11 attacks in 2001, Lockheed Martin's market value rose significantly. Specifically, its stock went from about $17.4 billion in market capitalization to more than $30 billion. Additionally, JP Morgan Chase & Company descended from Rockefeller's Chase Manhattan, which remains a core Federal Reserve member bank. Per fundamentalist Mormon and archivist Kevin Kraut's research, the Rockefellers have a long-standing relationship to the LDS Church. Chase also makes money off the defense industries through multiple credit facilities, such as Northrop Grumman's $3 billion revolving credit facility. In sum, the people that benefit big time financially from a wartime environment, large shareholders of defense companies such as an investment fund called Ensign Peak Advisors that happens to be registered as a church. Lobbyists, large banks, world leaders, and shareholders of the banking systems. And who are the losers? Innocent war victims, taxpayers and their households, donors and congregants. It doesn't take a Rhodes Scholar to understand the laws of supply and demand. Needs-based selling is the most effective form of sales. If consumers don't have a demand or need, then the dark systems will create one through fear. So let this sink in. A church that professes Christ and from the pulpit encourages us to love one another and to help the least of these, all while openly speaking out against war, makes a ton of money off of global war and conflict.
I've been to Ukraine and Russia many times. I love those lands, the people and their languages. I weep and pray for all who are affected by this conflict. As a church, we're doing all we can to help those who are suffering and struggling to survive. We invite everyone to continue to fast and pray for all the people being hurt by this calamity. Any war is a horrifying violation of everything the Lord Jesus Christ stands for and teaches.
The byproduct of those wars? Innocent bloodshed. So, can we call those LDS church investments blood money? It's just a simple.
It is an important question. I'm very curious to hear people's opinion on it.
And here comes Diamond Dave. Diamond hardly ever has an opinion about anything, I think.
Yeah, actually, I made a couple notes because on both topics, but on this last one, I'm a big Star Trek fan, right? And there's an episode where Dax talks to the little Ferengi, the little gnome-looking dude, and she talks about their rules of acquisition and how the rule of acquisition number 34 is peace is good for business, but no, war is good for business. And that episode just really just struck to me as he was talking, because the LDS Church talks about peace, and peace is a very good thing and it's a very profitable thing. But apparently they're showing us that war is also good for business. So either way, they will play both sides of the coin.
Yep, 100%.
I did want to bring up one thing about Holy Week as I hang out with you guys and kind of get your thoughts. Tim Ballard, after getting excommunicated, was bashing the church and was kind of looking like he was getting funding and going to join the Catholic Church. But with the little glitch in the matrix you guys brought up with the LDS Church possibly celebrating Holy Week, well, Holy Week is Catholic. So is there a coincidence here where Tim Ballard is going Catholic and now the church is going Catholic? Am I insane? Is this a conspiracy? Megan's smiling.
I don't think you're insane. I mean, I've been on this train for a long time. I've been following Tim Ballard for a long time because I actually was a victim of trafficking as a child. When I was living in my own home and going to church every Sunday, and the adults in my life didn't know. And so Tim Ballard's narrative that trafficking is taking place in other countries and we need to save these other children. I'm like, well, what about the children to whom it's happening in our own country? And anyway, I had a big beef with the way he did stuff over at OUR. So I've been following him for a long time. And I do know that during that whiteboard meeting, there was an infamous meeting that Tim Ballard was basically laying out his whole strategy for what he was going to do next. And a Mormon apostle, M. Russell Ballard's support was a big part of that. And part of the plan was to make Tim Ballard more mainstream by de-Mormonizing his books and a lot of his other content. And so, in my opinion, if we're going to go full tinfoil hat over here, then his excommunication was part of the plan, and his moving over to Catholicism was part of the plan, and the Mormon Church de-Mormonifying all of its stuff is also part of the plan. Removing the Angel Moroni from Google Maps and changing the name of the website to churchofjesuschrist.org, dropping the Latter-day Saints. And now, they've been ramping up to celebrate Holy Week since a few years back. They started mentioning something about making a bigger emphasis on the traditional Easter holidays, talking about Good Friday and things like that they never used to do. So that's my opinion.
So, no, I actually agree with that. And this is kind of funny we're on the same page just because, being the outsider and just blatantly seeing all this, which is kind of weird. But one of the things, I kind of get the vibe that I think Tim Ballard, being excommunicated and then going Catholic, I think that kind of tipped the hand, as almost it comes off as he did this out of spite, where it's you're going to kick me out. Well, I'm going to reveal the plan here.
Yeah, maybe.
And then
I'm going to go full tin foil hat and say that Tim had a channeling again to Nephi, and Tim actually convinced Nephi that, hey, we're thinking small potatoes. Prophet of the Mormon Church is at best 3 or 4 million people will even listen to me, right? Let's do something bigger. Let's take over the Catholic Church. And Nephi came around to that idea, just like how Joseph Smith, said, God, can I share the manuscript? No, you can't. And then you ask God enough times and he says, okay. So maybe that's why the church is behind 20 years, because it takes
Yeah,
that long to keep on telling God, something, and he goes, okay, whatever.
I think it's
You guys are
interesting that
impossible.
yeah, I think it's interesting that the church is demormonizing because I mean there goes the uniqueness of the church and we are the peculiar people. So I got this pulled up on my phone and this to me is fascinating. But if you look, let me just try and get it there. The you can't quite see it, but in the red circles there are little black crosses. Maybe
Yeah.
if I hold it, there are little black crosses. But that's interesting to me because I would have thought they would have kept the angel Moroni because nobody would know what that is. Here in Mongolia, Christians are considered to be assholes, and people don't people just generally avoid them just generally speaking. So
I
that's
think
interesting to
Mongolia
me
is
that
not part of the plan.
apparently not, but I mean, it's interesting to me that going mainstream might actually hurt them in a different way because if you go mainstream in countries like India, Mongolia, China, I mean, granted, China's its own animal, but like Africa, where you see kind of what's going on in Nigeria, like labeling yourself as a mainstream Christian could be dangerous.
Hmm.
But if you have the Angel Moroni and be like, yeah, we're the Mormon church, everyone's like, okay, what is that? Like, they don't care.
Yeah, we've showed this before just so that people can see what Dave was talking about. But this is, the San Antonio area, and you see all of these little crosses for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. But here's something interesting. The San Antonio, Texas temple still has a little Moroni,
Oh,
while the churches have crosses.
somebody missed the revelation. Someone didn't get
Right.
personal revelation right there.
Yeah, somebody either that or they're making a conscious choice. I'm curious to know, so now I'm going to go look it up. I want to see what Utah looks like.
Yeah, because with Mongolia and other states and other countries that I've seen with crosses popping up, my guess is that's an oversight because it's like one out of
Yeah.
everything else globally. So somebody somehow missed that, which fine, whatever, I don't care. Humans make mistakes.
Oh, it's
I
not a
can't
mistake. Look at this.
wait, what? What?
It's not a mistake, because watch.
Have they just not gotten around to it yet?
This is Utah right here.
Oh.
So they've got Moroni.
Oh wait, those are temples.
For the
Those are temples.
Yep. So
Oh.
the church buildings have crosses, but the temples have Moronis.
That's interesting. That kind of makes me honestly genuinely concerned for the safety of countries like Pakistan. They have one ward, they're trying to get a second one. You put a cross up on a building in Pakistan, that's going to get burned down within the same week.
Oh, wow.
It's not
Interesting.
and I mean, and that's true with most Middle Eastern countries, you know what I mean? So, because
we were just
I
talking
can't
about
imagine them doing that.
we were just talking about how the church didn't seem to be planning to incorporate Buddhism as well, or other things. Maybe they're going to have Buddhas on the top of the temple in, I don't know, 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe. Maybe they should just get the wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube Ben from Family Guy. You see it the used the used car parking lots. Those things that just wave around like that.
Right.
That would be more entertaining anyway, in my opinion.
That would be. Well, Randy, you're the one who brought that story to us. So, what are your thoughts?
I'm sorry, because I was desperately looking for the story that Megan Hayes put up that Gene wanted me to pull up.
Oh, okay.
So I might have tuned you out just a little bit. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We were just opining about, demormonizing the church and, them putting up crosses on Google Maps and stuff like that. But I was curious what you think about the church tax situation. Just the video that you shared, like what was the main reason that stood out to you that you wanted to share that today?
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, no, that disgusts me, to be honest. Not only am I disgusted that all the church is concerned about is making more and more money and growing their fat
Yeah.
$360 billion corporation, but to invest in war and the weapons of war, to invest, they're preaching being Christ-like, loving one another, let's all get along kind of garbage when they're investing in the companies that make these weapons of war because they know that those values aren't going to go down. In these
Right.
tumultuous times, they're only going to go up and it's going to make them money. So who cares? Who cares about the fact that these are weapons of killing machines, literally killing machines? Who cares? As long as we're increasing that fat bank account, let's go for it. That's
Yeah.
what my thoughts are on it.
You know what I want to, you know what I'm really curious about because we're on this topic is they're invested in US military hardware, right? But the church is international. And as we all know, countries internationally have their own weapons manufacturers. So I would love to know if in other countries, like I don't think they can do it in China because you have to be like an actual resident, and that's almost impossible. But like in Europe, right? Because you got the Brit Vengers in Europe, you have stakes in the British Isles. I'm genuinely curious to see if they are investing in, British and German hardware. Or with the war in Ukraine, especially Finland and Sweden, because Finland has a very long and proud history of kicking the shit out of Russia on skis, right? So it would not surprise me if the church there is investing in other weapons industries.
Well, Dave, I can tell you from my point of view, whatever loopholes that they need to find to invest wherever they want to around the world, that's one of the reasons why they have a global presence, is because they've got members who are residents of China and who can invest. And I guarantee you that they're doing the same thing there as they did with Ensign Peak, where they're like, okay, we'll just prop up a dummy to answer the telephone whenever somebody calls this shell corporation, and it's somebody who works for the church. So whatever they have to do.
That is dangerous to do in China.
Well,
That
I
is
mean,
very dangerous. Yeah,
I think
I
the
agree
thing
with
is,
you. I agree
yeah.
with you. I completely agree with you. I'm just like, whoever's doing that better be very, very careful, because if the Chinese government ever gets a hold of that, you will be executed.
Yeah, it's just
That's
Simon David
insane.
made me think of something. Maybe it was even more of a disrespecting when the United States would call the people from the Russian army Ruskies, and that was an extra layer of digging because of the fact that the Nordics would beat them on skis in the mountains. So I don't know, just a thought.
I was watching a football game this morning, and it just so happens that the game that I was watching, the quarterback is LDS. And, there's several LDS players who play football. There's coaches. Andy Reid of the Kansas City Chiefs is LDS. You've got so many of the LDS folks. And you know what? You don't hear the church bitching about them working on Sunday. But you have a woman who's trying to feed her kids, and she's told that if she doesn't have to work on the Sabbath, she'll be more richly blessed. I think that this is an example on a small scale of what we're looking at here. It's whatever is convenient for the church, whatever's going to make them the most money, whatever's going to make them the most publicity, visual like the LDS football players. Yeah, they're representing the church and they're good football players. Keep them going. It's all, in my opinion, hypocrisy, and it's built
It's not the
on.
church's fault. It's not the church's fault that the woman didn't do more in sports in high school with the opportunity she had.
Oh,
Yep, you got
It's
it,
just-
Gene. That is the point.
It's just very clear what their priorities are. Because if they wanted to protect children in the church, they could. There's so much they could do. If they wanted to feed the poor and needy, there's so much they could do. The church is run by attorneys and bankers, and it's very clear that their priority is to protect themselves legally and make as much money as they possibly can.
I can address Isabel's question in a second, but I want to. I agree with Randy. I experienced what he's talking about personally, because as a content creator, and this is back when I'm like at 112,000 followers now. Almost all of them are in Africa, India, Southeast Asia. I had about 120,000 followers at the time when I was in the church, and when I was like a true believing Mormon. Like, I wouldn't even sit in the sacrament meeting. I would make content in the church, like in the foyer, just like taking pictures and making AI art of what appeared to be Mother Mary with links to the LDS church and things like that. And they would have 50,000, 100,000, 200,000 reactions. And the bishop's like, yeah, no, let Dave do his thing. You go bring sacrament to him, right? You leave him alone. He's helping the church, right? So when there was a couple opportunities to do like callings, I turned them down on the basis that it would interfere with my content creation, my family friendly Minecraft streaming. And the bishop's like, nope, that's fine. We won't give you any callings. You focus on that. We can consider that your calling. Right? So, I mean, there is a convenience, there is a favoritism, especially with LDS content creators, where you can pretty much like do your own thing while everyone else has to check the boxes and be to church on time and whatever. But if you're a content creator, people leave you alone. Now the question I wanted to quickly address.
Well, can I make
for
one
it.
point about that, Dave? It's about the fact that you were doing something that was beneficial for the church. And
Yep.
so it's always rules for thee and not for me, because if you're
Right.
benefiting the church, they're going to let you bend the rules.
Exactly. Yep.
So that's all.
No, it's true. It's true. Now the church's links to Israel, they have a teaching center in Israel.
Mhm.
Quick Media and Ward Radio and Jacob Hansen and a bunch of other content creators, they went. Quick Media actually does tours in Israel, right? So they do cruises, and you can go, and that's their thing. But it's heavily tied to Israel. And then there's also, and Tim and everyone else here can explain the doctrine far better than I can, but everyone in the LDS Church is considered to be one of the 12 tribes of Israel. So
Yep.
Israel's very, very heavy in the LDS Church. And to this day, like I said, content creators, they go there, they do tours, people pay a lot of money to go there. They try and find all these relics from Israel and tie it to the church in really weird and bizarre ways that, like, I personally never heard of a rabbi being like, yeah, this is tied to the LDS Church. So,
Yeah.
What do you think
so
about that, Tim?
I think it's very interesting, your question. If they're supporting all these warmongers, then the church has ties to Israel through weapons.
Yep, 100%. And
Yeah,
while the
100%.
LDS Church claims political neutrality, they do, and at least they did for a very, very long time, openly teach that one day Mormons are going to possess the temple in Jerusalem. They believe that
Yep.
that's their destiny. And they also believe that that the Book of Mormon people came from Israel, and that all of the Mormons are going to eventually return there. So there's that.
So the scripture was
Yep.
cut short. It says wars and rumors of wars, but it was cut off where it says, so invest heavily in arms.
No, we all know how Mormons feel about arms because there's that one story in the Book of Mormon that Ammon taught us about the importance of bearing arms.
Cutting off all those arms.
I was
Heck,
adopted
come
into
on.
the house of Ephraim.
Gene,
You
are
were
you naked?
adopted?
I thought if
You're
I would
either
cut my video out, it would be better for my streaming.
no, you're naked, and it's either that or you're eating breakfast and you don't want to make us jealous.
No, I think he's trying
Yeah.
to preserve bandwidth.
Is for
I'm drinking on this podcast, so
for Isabel's question, do you mean financially does the church support Israel? Is that what you mean, or do you mean militarily?
Well, yeah, I think, based
it's
on
both.
it's both, yeah. And I
Yeah,
mean,
I'd
based
say it's
on
both.
what we were discussing, where the Mormon church is so heavily invested in weaponry and, the U.S. military is helping Israel. So there's that.
Well, plus the
Yeah.
Smith family felt that they were descended from Jesus. And
That's
Jesus
right.
Yes.
was
Yes.
related to some Jews, I'm betting.
And what makes it kind of even
Yeah,
more
could be.
egregious is that because the U.S. supports Israel with the Iron Dome, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, right? The LDS Church is both funding and profiting off of the genocide in Palestine.
Yep.
Right. So you have that aspect. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for this, but you look at the, there's like over 1,200 Christians in Nigeria that were, unalived by Islamists. But what many people don't know is the U.S. supplies arms to Africa. So it would not surprise me if those weapons, or at least some of those weapons, were were involved in that, which, if true, and I'm saying if because I don't know, this is just speculation, but if it's true, that means that the church both funded and profited off of the annihilation that's going on in Nigeria.
100%.
So that's like, that's its own can of worms because the LDS Church claims to be Christian. But if the LDS Church is profiting and funding the persecution of Christians, they don't want that to get out because that is the worst PR imaginable, since every other Christianity denomination of Christianity already thinks that's a cult.
Yeah.
Right?
It is the oldest story in the world that the powerful profit from both the side that wins the war and the side that loses the war. I mean, it's kind of what I was talking about with, the Charlie Kirk assassination. That whether it's the left or the right, look at who profits. Look at who profits when something like that happens. Both sides profit from it eventually, but it's the people who, are funding the war machine and the people who are funding the news machine and all that. They profit no matter what happens in the world, so they don't care about individual lives.
And they don't care because, Maven's here. What's up? I consider Maven to be one of my bestest of friends. She's awesome. But yeah, and that's a thing, and that just shows that the church doesn't care about people. Because
Exactly.
it's one thing to, so I used to work at Wells Fargo corporate. I have a background in accounting and finance. And that's my thing, is investing and trading and looking for the best things. But I avoid weapons because there's a difference between looking for like a solid portfolio and a solid growth strategy and funding a nuke one nuclear warhead that can wipe out 6 million people, right? The dividends and the mathematical ratio cannot even compare to the death toll that one nuclear warhead can, create.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah, I mean, we could go for a really long time down this rabbit hole. There's so much to talk about there, but I think for me, the bottom line always comes back to just exactly what you said, Dave, is that they don't care about the individual members. And why should they? Because the Q15, and even to a large degree, the members of the 70, especially the Q15, though, they have a literal ivory tower where they live. Everything is provided for them. They've got plenty of money for themselves and all of their kids because they got that $1 million bonus when they came in to do whatever they wanted, with. And they also have all the expert advice of all of the, Ensign Peak people to help them individually. So they're all wealthy. They're all second anointed, so they can't be held accountable for anything that they do wrong. And all they want to do is perpetuate the machine. It's just designed to keep the people in power. And so they don't have, whenever they do occasionally go out into public, they're adored as though they're gods. And so they don't have any reason to understand the normal day-to-day life of an everyday Mormon anywhere in the world.
It's
How
also,
ironic is it, Megan, that on a very small scale, how ironic is it that the church has doubled down on not allowing firearms, handguns into the church to protect the members from the bad guys? Why? Because they don't care about the members. They care about the liability. That's it. That's all they care
That's
about.
all they care about.
Yep.
Yeah.
and it's interesting that the church talks so much about family, but then funds weapons of war that destroy families.
Exactly.
To me, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. They have destroyed more families than they have helped, I would argue. Just because of the way that their doctrine is. It's like, if you really cared about families, then you would care about inclusion and you would care about kindness, even to those people who aren't members of the church and everything like that. I agree with you. It never was a church. It was always, I don't know. I mean, since 1922, it's been a corporation. And I would argue it wasn't much of a church before then. So.
Yeah, no, because originally, and I'm going to personally take accountability for something that I said in the past, and you all can snap this and do whatever you want. When I first joined Latter Daily Digest, and I sincerely mean this, not because I'm drinking beer, I actually do mean this. I originally said that I did not believe the LDS Church is a cult. Originally, because I gave a list of reasons, and I mean, even though there could be an argument there, as I hang out with you guys and as I study more the financials, and for me, it's not even a doctrine. For me, I can make a case it's a cult just on the financial information alone, because that's my field, right? So I personally want to walk that back because I was dead wrong.
Consider it walked back,
Okay.
Diamond Dave.
Yeah, because like,
Okay.
and that's the thing too. Another thing I've had to kind of reconcile is I can't claim, and Tim's seen me claim this on my Facebook page through various comments I made. I can't claim Christianity is a cult based around Jesus, aka some guy in a desert, one of many doomsday preachers, but then say the LDS Church, which is based on Joseph Smith, who was some random guy doing treasure digging, is not a cult. That does not compute.
Yeah.
That's not logical. So
I agree
Well,
with
and
you.
it's-
And go ahead, Randy.
Well, I was just going to say, and to double down on that, it's based in folk magic from the very beginning.
Yeah.
The folk magic, which once again leads to the cult narrative.
now I will say Buddhism and Tibetan Buddhism here in Mongolia does have kind of folk magic aspects. So for me, that alone doesn't make it a cult. It's the actions of the leader, it's the actions of the group over an extended period of time in terms of patterns. Just like I look at financial patterns, I started to look at the church's patterns of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, when it comes to like comparing the LDS Church to Tibetan Buddhism, like over 40% of Mongolia is just none, meaning they have no religious affiliation, right? You can leave Tibetan Buddhism and not be called anti-Buddhist.
Right.
You can critique Buddhism and say, and not be called anti-Buddhist. People will have a discussion with you on that. But
Yes, and
when in the
also,
LDS Church, you're anti-Mormon, you're separated, you don't, you're tares and all these other things.
yeah, they're also not trying to hide the fact that they've got origins in folk magic, and that's
Yeah.
all the church is trying to cover up and hide its origins and, and keep the secrets, basically. Um,
That's a
anyway,
really good point. That's a really good point. Because, like, here in Mongolia, the shamans, they have obviously shamanic get-ups from head to toe. They look like ghillie sniper suits, basically. And then they
Yeah.
dance around and they do that. They don't hide it
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
But the LDS Church is like, no, we follow Jesus. So,
Yeah. So I kind of do want to get back around to talking about Holy Week. Maven saying that it looks like Christian cosplay. And then I think this is interesting too. Mary says, my daughter's just informed me that her stake have been told to hold an open service next Sunday evening to celebrate Remembrance Sunday.
Oh,
that's
interesting.
Catholic. That's
Yes,
Catholic, isn't
it
it?
is.
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
And I always used to say too that one of the things that I loved about Mormonism is that we didn't go to church on Christmas Day unless it was Sunday, but all the other Christian denominations do that. And the reason I said that I appreciated that is because as a musician during the holidays, you don't really get to celebrate with your family. And so that was one thing that I could count on, is that because I wasn't working in music in another church, is that I could be with my family on Christmas. And so thinking about Easter, I used to make a lot of money at Easter time because they've got, Good Friday, and they've got, Maundy, Thursday, and they've got, all of these different holidays where they have services. And so I would be singing and playing at some of those services, making money because the Mormons weren't doing those services. And now it kind of sounds like they're going to be doing Ash Wednesday, Maundy, Thursday, Good Friday. They're all of that Holy Week stuff that, Mormons didn't do before. I'm curious to know if they're going to start having broadcasts on those days, or if they're going to instruct regular congregations to hold meetings or remembrances on that day.
Interesting. I wonder why they did away with the Easter sunrise services and the different Easter pageants. What's that all about?
Well, I mean, money. I think
So
that there was.
They weren't bringing in converts.
Yeah, and I don't know why I keep losing my camera, but anyway, I think part of it was correlation. Having everybody instructed to start church at a certain time, based on how many congregations were in the building, as opposed to doing a sunrise service. And then what was the other thing about the pageants? The pageants were losing money and they weren't gaining any followers. And so that's, I think, one of the reasons they stopped doing it too, is because it was one of the things that made us weird or peculiar to have a Hill Cumorah pageant and to have a,
And it was based on false history.
And most of the people who attended those pageants were members.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It cost a lot of money and it didn't bring in converts.
Heaven forbid they should spend any extra money.
No.
And when I say an Easter pageant, I mean a traditional Christian pageant, not the Book of Mormon.
You mean a passion play?
Where somebody dresses like Jesus and drags a cross around.
Ironically, and here's the ironic thing, because if you look at like South America, there are people who legitimately crucify themselves as a passion play. Do you know how much money those people make? Like, you want money, do that.
In my mission in Spain, there was always a guy that was crucified in all the major cities. And I mean, literally nails in the hands. I don't know if they did his feet or not, but and my gosh, through the streets of every major city, they had the Easter, what we would call a parade of sorts.
Yeah.
But it had a guy dragging a big, full, heavyweight cross, and I mean, they really played it up. Yeah,
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 I
same thing in
will
Who's
Germany.
really
say-
good at that gets a compliment, and people say, "Hey, Jose, you nailed it."
I knew
That
it was
was-
coming. I knew
Yeah,
it.
we all saw it was coming.
Yeah.
I will
Oh, and hey,
say,
I wanted to
as
say something
go for
just
it.
real quick. Megan, what's it called when like the members are like the gatekeepers and they actually do more? Like, you know how there's the word of wisdom, and then some people say, I'm even better Mormon. I don't even, eat sugar, or I don't use vanilla flavoring because it has alcohol in it. I heard somebody say that once. And so I'm wondering
Yeah.
if this announcement that you just read, somebody said, is now that some local leaders see that the church is Catholicizing itself, they're going to be even better at doing that. And so the church is going to let that happen. They're like,
Yeah.
say, go for it.
Yeah, they're going to Mormon harder than everybody else Mormons, because that's what Mormons
Yeah.
value, is people who Mormon harder than other Mormons.
Yeah, we
Mormoning.
could do an opposite of Sunstone has more than one way to Mormon. There could be an opposite T-shirt. I Mormon harder.
Yep.
Or better.
Or better. I love it. I will say real quick, it's kind of bizarre to me that the LDS Church wants to go mainstream and is getting rid of everything that made it peculiar. As bizarre as this may sound, I actually respect the people who call themselves Christians and like drag the crosses through the street and nail themselves to them literally, because that's actual dedication to what they believe. They don't change. It's bizarre, it's barbaric, but at least they are consistent.
All the
Yeah.
pioneer stories are the church is true because look at all the hard things the pioneers did. Joseph Smith did polygamy. It was a hard thing. That's how good he was, right?
Yeah, it was
So
hard,
is-
but they did it anyway, and that's
No.
that's the
Yeah.
message.
So is flying
It's-
airplanes into tall buildings.
Too soon. It's too soon, Gene.
Too soon.
I do have to say though, like it really makes me think. I did not know that there were people who would literally nail themselves to crosses. Like that is some
Church is.
dedication right there. But also, isn't it kind of mockery? Kind of like how people run marathons now because the first guy who did it died. So aren't they kind of saying like, look, I nailed myself to a cross and I didn't die? Like, did you Jesus better than Jesus? Is that what they're trying to do?
So
Like,
what
no,
it is,
I-
it's a symbol of dedication, and it's a symbol of Jesus did this for me,
It's-
so I'm obligated to suffer the way he did.
It's like
Yeah,
the women who crawl on their knees to the cathedrals in Mexico and Latin
Oh,
American countries.
with the bloody, they're all bloody and skin
Bloody.
torn off by the time they get there.
Yeah.
But
Man.
as far as your comment, Megan, that makes perfect sense, and I understand what you're saying. But no, it's these men are very fearful to have it happen to them, but they do it in the name of Christ. They do it
Wow.
for Him, not about Him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure,
They feel
totally.
like that's
I
their
get
way
it.
of sacrificing.
Yeah. Also, though, I have to say, the concept of a religious pilgrimage is as old as religion itself. And,
Yes.
the pioneers crossing the plains was the Mormon pilgrimage. It was, there are a few key things that you have to do if you want your religion to be successful. And the pilgrimage is one of them because it makes people rededicate themselves to the faith. And I've always argued that one of the reasons Mormonism was so successful was because of that trauma bond that the pioneers made as they went on this trek to isolate themselves from the entire country in the name of religious freedom. And I think once they got there, it caused them to be so much more faithful, because at that point, it's like, well, at this point, it has to be true. Otherwise, I left everything that I loved and watched people die along the trail for nothing. And so it makes people rededicate themselves to the faith in a way that you don't if you don't make some kind of a pilgrimage or other kind of major sacrifice for what you believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Randy and I
To
recently interviewed someone who's a descendant of Hiram Smith, And she said that she was told all her life, our family, went through hard things. You have to be an example. You are going to be looked at harder than other people, and you can't let the family down.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, what pressure is that?
that's a
Don't
lot.
let the family down.
That's pretty common here in Asia. It's very, very common. That's why, like, you look at, like, in secular aspects, you look at Japan. That's why the unaliving rate is so high, because you need to get, and same with China. That's kicking up because you have to get into the best school. You have to, it's not a religious thing, but it's a family last name, and if you fail the family, it's over. You have
Yeah,
no shot on.
you don't dishonor your family name. And if you can't bring honor to the family name, the best thing you can do is unalive yourself. So at least you're not an embarrassment.
Yeah,
You
I mean
know?
that's part of Bushido. That's part of Bushido.
Mhm.
If you cannot provide for your family, especially if you're a man, if you cannot provide for your family and you can no longer bring honor, the most honorable thing you can do is unalive yourself, and then your family still maintains its honor. You are granted
Right.
honor for doing so, and then life goes on.
Right,
There's
right.
nothing like doing the right thing by taking yourself completely out of the labor market.
You
Yeah.
know?
It was that way with my family. I wanted to know, because I'm a seventh generation Mormon, I wanted to know who was it that made that initial decision to join the church, and why was it that my ancestors, continued this tradition. And what I found is that my fifth great grandfather joined the church in 1830 in Missouri. He was one of the first members to be baptized there, and he actually died when all of the families were being taken out of Missouri. And, he and his family were walking, this distance, and he came down with, he died of exposure, basically, is what they used to say back then, is that his body was no longer able to fight the cold and everything, and he shut down. So as he was dying, he said to his children, he made each of his children promise him that they would marry someone in the faith and stay in the faith. And so his son, my fourth great grandfather, obviously married in the faith, became faithful, made sure that everybody emigrated to Utah, founded basically what's now Harrisville, Utah, went on missions to Salmon, Idaho, went to prison for practicing polygamy, was like this pinnacle of faithful Mormonism, married 3 wives, all of that stuff. And when he died, before he died, he said, "Tell my children if they don't pay their tithing, they cannot go where I'm going." And so
Wow.
it was those kind of narratives that
Wow.
got passed on through my family, that each one of the grandparents, when they were dying, made people promise that they'd stay in the faith, and like made people give these declarations that they're never going to leave the faith and everything. So I think one of the only reasons that I was able to get out really is because since my dad, like all the rest of that side of the family, they still live in Utah for the most part. But my dad was an Air Force pilot. And so we traveled around and we got exposed to other things and other cultures. And that, I was living in Connecticut as a teenager. There weren't Mormons to date over there. And so I ended up marrying a non-Mormon. I think that's one of the only reasons I got out. And I'm grateful I did, but that's how those legacies get passed down, and people double down on their faith every time something like that happens.
Yeah, it's very much rooted in tradition too, because like I married into a very prominent Mongolian family, right? So I talked a bit about my wife's late father sculpted and built national monuments here that still exist and tourists come to see from around the world, like the National Equestrian Monument, the Maitreya statue that I have on Facebook with me standing in front of it that's almost completed. And that I can relate to from like a secular sense, because she's always commenting, like, hey, you need to do this, you need to do that. People are going to look at you differently. You are the head of this household, and thus people are going to have these expectations of you. So you
Yeah.
have to act, and even my body language, I'm very mindful of like my body language and what I say, and who eats before me, right? You know, like all these nuances that I'm kind of familiar with from having lived in India, although it's very, very different here. But so I can kind of relate to what Megan was saying there. Real quick to answer Jesse's question that kind of got buried, do the men who get crucified volunteer? Are they selected? They volunteer. And
Yeah.
actually, I learned something is there's an episode of House, right? Where there's a guy who crucifies
That's-
himself. And
Yes.
that's actually based off of a true story. There was a man who made a deal with God saying, I will crucify myself for the rest of my life every year if you save my daughter from cancer. And for whatever reason, his daughter was cured of cancer. I don't know the full story, but from what little I know, it sounds like, or is implied, that it just went into remission and just never came back. And, you know, throughout his life, he crucified himself to maintain that deal. That episode of House is based on a true story. They volunteer.
Wow. That's amazing.
So
Yeah, I'd be afraid to
dedication.
stop crucifying myself. I'd be afraid my daughter's cancer would come right back.
Oh, that's actually the Zizen Monument. That is different. So yeah, that's the Maitreya statue is, you're gonna have to kind of scroll through it, but it's basically a statue with a bunch of like yellow scaffolding on it and me at a really terrible angle. If you want to throw that up. But yeah, you know. So it's I feel like Mormonism ripped off other cultures to do that, honestly. You know, because the more I study the doctrine of Mormonism, I'm like, wait a minute, this is in Islam. And then I started thinking about it, it's like, wait a minute. I was Hindu before I joined the Mormon church. I left and I'm still Hindu now. The heavenly kingdoms, the multiple tiers, that's a knockoff of the caste system. The Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother, that's Lord Shiva and Goddess Parvati. You could also call it Shiva Shakti, Divine Masculine, Divine Feminine, which predates Christianity, like Jesus himself.
Yeah,
So I
Joseph
can't
Smith
help
was
but
super
wonder-
good at ripping off other religions and other ideas.
It sounds like he ripped off other cultures too. Not just religions, but like cultures in general.
And other farmers, by the way.
Right. And farmers' daughters.
Yeah, that was good. That was going to be my next comment, but yeah.
Uh-oh. What happened?
Well, you know, when it boils down to it, we see that the church is ever changing, depending on their wants and needs, not depending on what God tells them. Because if that were the case, we would know that God changes his mind every other week about stuff. It's like, yeah, you know, I've thought about it, and yeah, we're going to take this commandment away, or we're going to impose this commandment.
Don't you remember the very famous Mormon song, Randy? Keep the temporary commandments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. Keep the temporary commandments.
That
Don't sing it. They'll copyright strike you.
I know.
Because
Well,
that's
they'll
where their
copyright
priorities are.
Gene. They'll copyright Gene. Randy's fine. That just reminds me of the Mormon Stories episode. The guy, was he from Uganda? I think it was, where he discovered that the Book of Mormon in his Ifrik, I believe is the language.
Yeah, that was
and I could be
RFM.
wrong. Or radio, yeah.
RFM did it first, and then they did it again on Mormon discussions. Yeah.
But yeah, he was saying that the African Book of Mormon is completely different. It's got like missing stuff than the U.S. Book of Mormon. I'm really tempted now to like find a Mongolian person to get a Book of Mormon in Mongol, in the Mongolian language, and translate it and compare it to the U.S. one. I want to see the differences.
I'm not surprised at all to hear that they created different versions in different languages. So,
yeah, me neither.
Well, I had one more little news tidbit to share today. Gene, I don't know if you've got more stuff, but I'll just share this one little thing really quick. It's not huge, but I think it's interesting at least. This is from NPR, from an NPR article that says, hold on, that Latter-day Saints are having fewer children, and church officials are taking note. Of course they are. I mean, of course we know that they keep track of this stuff. Just because they don't report the statistics anymore doesn't mean they don't compile them still. But basically, Dallin Oaks in the last conference, as acting president of the church, after Rusty's death, gave a talk about families. And he said, it is vital that Latter-day Saints do not lose their understanding of the purpose of marriage and the value of children. That is the future for which we strive.
That's a great impersonation, Megan.
That was amazing.
I wonder if they'll do something like when Hinckley said, "Let's go shopping." Or whoever said that.
I'm just gonna put on my Ward Radio hat for a second because I used to hang out with them. So wearing my Ward Radio hat, I'm just gonna say NPR is nothing but a bunch of woke libtard journalists who spew lies.
Thank you so much for pointing that out, Diamond Dave.
It's been a really... I know that's what Mormons are going to say. I know that's what Mormons are going to say.
Yeah, it's been a really long time since I've heard anybody actually say the words woke libtard journalist. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, that's just the go-to response that everyone knows is going to be the reactionary response.
Production value.
100%. So anyway, this is from a study from Catholic University of America demographer Stephen Cranny. And basically he's saying that in 2008, about 70% of Latter-day Saint women aged 18 to 45 had at least one child at home. And in 2022, that number has declined down to 59%. And so it's mirrored in the non-LDS population of the United States as well. But you can see we did have a little bit of an uptick between 2022 and 2024, but it's been in decline for a long, long time.
Can I just, I got to jump in here because I know some Mormons are going to be like, well, it's going back up. Yeah, using what's called technical analysis in the field of finance here, if you look at the overall trend, it's going down.
Yeah.
Overall, the little upticks don't matter. The overall trend is down. Just throwing that up.
Right. If you were looking at this like it was a stock investment, as many Mormons would be want to do, especially the leadership of the church, they would dump this stock.
What they would do is either they would short it or run put options on it because that's how you make money when the stock goes down. They would hedge. So if you have an investment, you would hedge by doing that. So if it goes down, you basically even out and lose nothing.
Right. But shorting leaves you open to unlimited liability. So it's a lot more risky. Put option might be a better.
Put options don't leave you open to it. You can essentially lose what's called the contract. So if you have 100 shares of something and, it expires at a given time, you were out whatever the amount is.
The contract amount. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, that was your stock market lesson. Thanks for coming to our TED Talk. But anyway, Mormons are having fewer babies. So that's the deal. The article kind of goes on to say, they interviewed a couple of Mormon families and, one mom was saying that she had her hands full with two and she couldn't imagine adding another one. Another person expressed issues about fertility issues. Like fertility is an epidemic in the United States now. And don't get me started on it because I believe, just to briefly say that all of the people who used to work for big tobacco and got us all addicted to cigarettes went to go work for big food and got us addicted to highly processed foods, which is ruining not only our hormonal balance, but also causing a lot of infertility. And guess what is super, super profitable? Weight loss drugs and fertility drugs. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
I'm just glad I got to use my degree on one of these episodes. Like, I didn't even use my degree that much working at Wells Fargo Corporate. Just as a little side note, I was doing transaction analysis. So it's nice to actually use my degree after like 5-6 years.
Yeah.
You know?
Super fun.
I have 4 kids, and if I can go back in time, I'd tell myself to watch more TV.
Yeah. I had 6, and I've told my children this before, that of course, like, I love all of them very much, but if I hadn't been so Mormon, I don't know, I always wanted to have a lot of kids, but maybe that was just because of my programming. I loved being a mom, but the thing that I regret the most is that when you have 6 children, you literally don't have the time that you need to spend one-on-one with them to have a meaningful enough relationship with each of them individually. So while I have really good relationships with my kids, I can't possibly be the best mom because I just don't have enough time to spend one-on-one with them. It's the sad fact, even now that most of them are grown up and gone, if I only had 2 kids or 3 kids, I would have enough time to talk to every single one of them every single day, but I don't now.
Yeah.
Sad.
I'll tell you who does. The bishop of each ward, talking to the youth. And just as a kind of a final little presentation here, this is just a very short leaked video of a bishop interviewing a young girl,
yes.
probably around 12 years old. I'm just going to play it for you real quick because I got to tell you,
it's cringy,
disgusts
guys.
me.
It's disgusting.
It's
This
very
I gotta
cringy.
see, because I haven't actually seen an interview like this before.
Oh, this is bad.
Some of the
Are
young
you
men
hearing it?
around, and so you're going to have to be careful.
Yes.
An adult male leader commenting on the
Really?
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah, we could
crosses
hear it.
professional and
Oh
ethical.
man, what is going on? I can't hear anything that I'm playing.
Well, we
But,
can, but it's
we
just
can hear it.
blurry.
We can hear it.
But you get an idea that Bishop calls a young girl in and says how pretty she is. And that if the boys
Oh.
aren't already chasing her, they probably will be any day now.
Yeah, can we just play it again real quick?
Sure. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. If I
of
hang on,
an
let me,
LDS
go
bishop
back and do
interviewing a young Mormon girl alone in his office. Bishop's the authority present of abusing
thank
children.
heavens
Abuse
for
took place. Go to the
Megan
They're
Hayes,
going to
because
attract the attention.
she's
You're very
really
Here, let's go to the tape.
been a big help on, because she's up studying all these church news items every day. Okay,
Yeah.
so okay, I'm sharing with you. Here we go.
And because you're a very attractive young lady, you're going to attract the attention, I'm sure you already are, of some of the young men around, and so you're going to have to be careful.
An adult male leader commenting on the physical attractiveness of a minor in a private setting crosses professional and ethical boundaries, regardless of his intent. It also reinforces the idea that a girl's value and spiritual safety are tied to her ability to manage male desire through her appearance and behavior. The Mormon Church needs.
All right, I want to say this as the outsider, because I've never heard this before. Fucking what? Really?
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
Oh my god,
But-
dude, that is fucking insane.
Yes.
Well, and here's the thing that I want to help everybody understand is that growing up as a man or a boy in the church is very, very different than growing up as a girl in the church, because I got this message all the time, not just from, I don't think my bishop ever said it to me personally, particularly, but I got this message all the time in my young women's meetings, all the time from other women that, Kiki and I were just talking about this today. We're doing an episode on the magic underwear. I was saying that I've heard more than once from more than one church leader that my body is literally pornography, and that if I don't keep it covered up, then I'm responsible for the bad thoughts and the sins of all of the men who come into contact with me. That was the messaging that I received growing up all the time.
And you've heard the soundbite, I'm sure, where the apostle is saying, young ladies are putting those thoughts in the minds of the young men by the way they dress, by the way they act. In other words, it's the young ladies' fault, not the men's fault. The men
And,
are holy priesthood holders.
And
and
I'm going
now
to
we
help.
now we have sleeveless garments that
Yeah,
show the porn
Right.
shoulders.
Yeah,
that
we're
I'm
walking
going to
away.
say that Kiki and Megan's channel is causing lots of sinning. So if you're a man in the audience and you want to see how much sin is going on, in fact, Kiki says she's doing her part. That in order for Jesus to come again, there has to be
There has to
degradation
be
in
more
the world.
sin.
There has to be
That's
more
right.
sin, otherwise he would be here. And so
We do
My-
enjoy adult beverages on our channel when we do our shows. So we are causing a lot of sinning that way for sure.
I just
I
want
am
to take
actually.
I want to take a baby step backwards. My best friend in high school became a bishop, and now he's no longer a bishop. But I was talking to him on the phone recently, and I said, "Do you really ask the young women, the young ladies that you interview, about masturbation and if they're doing that?" And he said, "Yeah, absolutely. It's what we're taught to do." And he said, "It's kind of awkward because I have to explain it to them if they don't know." And I'm thinking, what in the hell are parents even letting their kids go in alone to one of these bishops' interviews? If someone's going to explain masturbation to my little girl,
Oh,
well,
jeez.
you know, I would definitely have her mom be the one to do that. And I sure as hell wouldn't let her in to a bishop's interview all alone. Nope, nope,
That
nope.
shit would
Now,
not fly here at all, dude. That would not fly outside the US. I don't know about like Europe. I've heard of it happening in like England, but like here in the East, no, that would not fly at all.
well, the
That is
church is
insane.
finally letting parents come in, but they didn't forever. So, yeah.
I just got to say, Megan's experience, what Randy said, and listening to the soundbite, that just totally puts like a personal experience I had in a perspective. So I used to go to my roommate's YSA ward back when I was a true believing member, and near BYU High School, we were gonna go to I forget what it's called. I think it's like Alley Cats or Black Cats or something. It's in Provo. We were gonna go bowling. And there was almost a car accident because there was a bunch of, BYU girls in bikinis, like all sunbathing and wandering around one particular area, right? There was literally almost a car accident. And I'm like, okay, that was weird, whatever. We go bowling. Later on, it was like maybe 4 or 5 days later, we were talking, and one of the guys at the YSA ward said he went and talked to his bishop because he saw the girls and felt bad that he lusted. And his bishop said, well, that's not your fault because they presented their bodies for your attention. And I looked at him and I'm like,
Oy.
there is no way he said that. There is no way he said that. You're screwing with me right now. But hearing all of this, I'm just like, wait, is this a thing? Like,
So if a
it
young
sounds
man
like it's a
goes-
thing. It
If a
sounds
young
like it's
man
a
goes
thing.
into a strip club and watches the strippers and then goes home and masturbates, it's the stripper's fault, right?
Yes, it is because they should not have been exposing themselves like that.
Well, something's
That-
occurring to me now. When I was young, like younger than 10, I would give, like 2.5 minute talk or the sacrament gem or whatever. And after I was done, the elderly ladies in the ward would come up to me and say, "You're such a handsome young man." Now, I wonder if they went home to their own private room and I caused them to sin, but nobody ever said it. But, it's
Well,
making me
you sure
ruminate.
You sure caused me to sin all the time, Gene, because you're such a handsome old man now.
I think I need more beer if I'm going to stay here.
Boo,
Yeah,
boo.
I'm about ready to end the episode. I don't know about you guys. This is
Yeah,
fun,
we're out. Yeah.
But
yeah, just to put a cap on it. Women in the church get this messaging. all the time. And it is the reason for a lot of the body shame that I carried with me all the way into adulthood, because I really did believe that I inherently was bad. When you're told that your body is pornography and you know pornography is bad, then you feel bad for even existing, because you're making other people lose their eternal salvation if you do something wrong or say something wrong.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing that when it comes to modesty kind of hits home for me in a different way. Just because having lived outside the US and being here now, it's like modesty for women is a thing, but it's not nearly to that extreme, and men are expected to be modest too. Right. So,
Yeah.
now people, obviously people have different perspectives on that. But if you look at even other religions like Hinduism or Islam or whatever, men are equally held to the same level. Well, maybe not Islam, but in other religions, other cultures, men are equally held when it comes to like modesty, which is really interesting to me that Mormonism is only the woman and then the man can just get away with it.
Well, nobody ever, forgive me if I'm wrong about this because I don't know your particular experience, but as far as I know, you guys didn't get lessons in priesthood about wearing tight pants and going shirtless, right? I mean,
No.
Well, in my ward, we were told about not wearing skinny jeans. I remember that.
well, skinny jeans
And
are an abomination.
yeah,
So.
I know skinny jeans because of like
What?
it could cause lust. I can't think of a time when someone mentioned going. Actually, no, there was one time where there was a talk to men in elders quorum about not going shirtless because you have to take off your garments.
Oi.
Sure. Yeah. I mean,
But
as it's
even then,
related
it's
to
still
garment.
not to the same thing. So yeah,
Right.
that's
And
like
But
the closest thing I can think of, and that's still miles away.
and stay tuned
right.
for next week when we discuss why do men have nipples.
Oh God.
But the other thing I wanted to point out though is that young women get all of that messaging before they even go through the temple and have to wear garments. And many times we would go to church on Wednesday night for mutual, and the boys would be in the gym playing basketball. Some of them were wearing tank tops, and I was like, how come they get to wear tank tops but we can't? Why are their shoulders not pornography? It looks exactly the same. What's the problem? I would even argue that like men exposing their, muscular arms could be temptation to women, but you guys didn't get that messaging.
It's
Yeah.
the
I thought you were going to
priesthood's
say
job.
you guys
It's the
didn't have
priest.
muscular arms.
It's the priesthood's job to protect the women, right?
Is that the lesson? Is that the messaging that you got to
That's the
protect us
messaging I got. Yeah, to protect the women. Yeah, I
from
remember that.
from what? From other men or from what?
I guess from the world.
Oh, okay.
No, from anti-Mormons, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
From polygamy.
How about
from the
protecting,
world.
PTSD and trauma that we now all have from the teachings that we got
Exactly.
when
I
we
know, right?
Exactly.
Well, we appreciate everyone being here, and if you've
Yes.
enjoyed the show, please
Like and
hit the like
subscribe.
button. And you know what? I'm going to make a
Yeah.
special plea. Momo Nomo is that's my new Facebook account. When I say new, it's a few months old. But,
Facebook or YouTube?
Megan and
YouTube account.
Jean each, or YouTube, I'm sorry, Megan and Jean each have 1 million subscribers. And I'm glad that you've subscribed to their channel. But don't forget about little Momo Nomo at
Yeah.
Momo Nomo -1 on YouTube. Just saying. Remember to slide over there and hit that
Hit that
subscribe
like button.
because that
Yep.
just tickles me and makes my day. And
Yeah,
be
so-
sure and like Megan's and Jean's as well.
Yeah,
Or
I don't know,
subscribe.
or something. I don't know. When I promoted this episode today, I posted it on my channel with your link, Randy. So that's you should get at least one more subscriber from that.
Oh, well, you're very cool. I'm kind of excited that, I've got approaching 500.
That's awesome.
Cool.
Good for
That's
you.
excellent.
That's right.
Most of
I'm
them are-
approaching 100 million, but I'm pretty far
Right.
away. But I'm approaching.
I'm almost at
Wow.
5K. I'm almost at
Woohoo!
5K.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I
Wow.
do gaming.
Yeah, go sub to
Wow.
Diamond Dave. Do you at least,
Yeah.
do you at least speak intelligently while you game, or are we going to learn something while we're there?
No, it's more gaming ASMR. So some of it is lore, some of it's fun, and a lot of it is more just ASMR where it's a post-apocalyptic world and I use mods to clean up all the trash and debris in the game. So the roads look
perfect.
cleaner, the broken environments look nicer, I build settlements. It's just more like a casual, relaxing hangout area. I'm debating on getting into like another relaxing game, like what's called, me and my wife has started to play Ale and Tail Tavern, where it's basically you get a tavern and then you just manage it. I mean, you clean it, you sell various drinks and foods and apple pies and stuff like that, and you can get beehives and cows and whatever. So
Nice.
it's just more relaxing, just hang out.
Something to be said.
It sounds like Diamond Dave is the dystopian environmental protection agency of the virtual world.
You have no idea. I legitimately have people because of my videos, people ask me, "Hey, are you a janitor in a real life? Like this looks really clean." And I'm like, "No, I worked at Wells Fargo." Like, "No." But, it's just fun. But yeah, so if you're into that sort of thing, come hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Megan, what is tomorrow's Monday family home evening going to be about? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I was
Well, I
talking to
can
my kid.
answer. I was going to say I can answer that because it's the next chapter in the scripture study manual that they both have, the Book
That's
of
right.
Mormon.
Over at Ex-Mormon Snark, we're going to be talking about King Benjamin. And we're going to have a little adult beverage called King Benjamin's Eternal Empire. It's a very majestic beverage. So that's coming up. And then on Thursday night, we are going to air our pre-recorded episode about temple prep class and how it is neither a preparation nor a class. Discuss.
Talk amongst yourselves.
That's right.
Well, thank you all for coming today. And
Yes.
I know I speak on behalf of Gene and Megan and all those that are participating, Tim and Dave. We love you guys, and we are very much appreciative of you coming to listen to us each Sunday. That means a lot, because without you,
Yes.
we'd have no reason to do it.
Yep, that's true.
And maybe Gene will show you his shirt again next week.
All right.
Thanks,
I have
everybody.
2 other shirts.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye bye.